This podcast is made possible through donations from listeners like you and our partners at Tallman Equipment, where they pride themselves on equipping their customers with the tools they need to get the job done right. They are dedicated to set the standard for quality, convenience, and reliability. At Tallman, your opinion is important to them. Rate and review any product or tool you've used on their new website at tallmanequipment.com. Line 11 Clothing Company, making apparel for our first responders with a positive message to patriots that you can be proud of. A proceed of the cost goes to helping our foundation ignite the fire for father engagement. Give them a follow at Line 11 Clothing on Instagram. And last but not least, Monzingo Knives. Each knife is created with craftsmanship that only a tradesman could provide. Find them on Instagram at Monzingo Knives and get your American-made Monzingo knife today. Welcome to the Show Up Dad podcast. This podcast is created for hardworking fathers. At the Show Up Dad, we recognize that fathers providing for their children is certainly important. But when men truly understand their unique role and gain the knowledge and skills to be great fathers, they can transform and impact future generations. Our guest today is none other than Clint Kroese, a journeyman lineman, husband, and father to an amazing little girl. Clint now works for Cal Nevada JATC, where he is a full-time lineman apprentice instructor. Clint grew up in Chino, California, and got into the trade as a meterman for Southern California Edison. Clint topped out in 2016. Welcome to the show up, brother.
Thanks, brother. I'm glad to be here.
Hey, Clint, am I pronouncing your last name
it's
right
Kroese.
way? Kroese. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh man, I don't know if I'm probably butchering this dude's last name, man.
No, it's close. Yeah, everyone gets like that. You're pretty close though, not bad.
Right on, brother. Well, I want to open up by having you tell our audience a little bit about your history, your childhood as you remember it, your mom, your dad, etc. If you don't mind, brother.
Yeah. I was born in Pomona, and then grew up in Chino. My childhood was pretty good, even though my parents got divorced when I was 5 years old. Mm-hmm. But when they got divorced, they ended up getting houses like 3 miles apart. So I had it pretty made. I got to see them almost every day. So my schedule went, my mom would have me on Sundays. My mom would drop me off school on Monday. My dad would pick me up Monday. Then my dad would drop me off school on Tuesday. And then my mom would pick me up. So, vice versa. So I saw them at least every day. So it worked out pretty good. But yeah, my dad was always there. They just had conflicting issues with them, but it didn't affect the way that rose me at all. So.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, how was it that, like, I know childhood, divorce and stuff like that, that's rough on a child, and a lot of times we have a tendency when we're children to take the blame for that. Did you ever look at it and kind of be like, hey, what did I not do that my dad had to leave or my mom had to leave or whatever like that? Did you ever look at it?
Not really like that. I just seen as when you're 5 years old, stuff was hitting the fan around 4. I'm just saying it's so easy to get back together. I don't know why you guys couldn't get back together. It just seemed when you're that young, it just seemed like it's fine and dandy. But they did a lot of the fighting when I wasn't around, I guess. So I didn't see much of it, and all of a sudden it just like I don't remember much of it, but I just remember all of a sudden. I mean, now I got my dad's house. Now my mom was in an apartment for a while, and then she ended up getting another house after the divorce was settled. But it just seemed like it's almost like a blur now, the way it happened. Mm-hmm. But I didn't think it was my fault, really. I just seemed like it was so easy to get them back together. I don't know why they couldn't get back together. But
that's that childlike faith that we have as children. You know what I mean? We don't see the big picture. We just see that, hey, you're my mom, you're my dad. I love you guys. You need to make it work. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But other than that, I don't. My dad was a general contractor. I've been doing construction my whole life. So ever since he took me to the jobs, he's self-employed. He has his own license, so he's able to take me on the jobs. We've done hundreds of modern home patios and stuff like that for U.S. Homes and Shea Homes as a kid. So he got me down to a new construction. That's like all I knew. So I could never even play sports in high school because I had to go work during the summer and stuff like that. So he raised me good to work hard for my money and, honest days work for honest days pay. So.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Do you think that that's like one of the biggest things your dad taught you is that good work ethic?
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of knowledge on, I could do any house project without having to hire someone, which is pretty cool actually, something you can do. You can build power lines, but you can also come home and put a new breaker in, change a dishwasher out, put a new sink in, stuff like that. Build some cabinets for for my house. There's all kinds of cool stuff.
So he definitely got you to have that mechanical aptitude that a lot of kids these days are missing, huh?
Oh, big time. Yeah, I still play video games like at my mom's house and my neighbors. I used to play video games all the time, but actually my buddy Kenny Draper, the one that's in he was my best man at my wedding. He's actually just topped out about 2 years ago. He's a journeyman too. He went through Cal Nav apprenticeship. So we used to play video games together and we used to build forts together. And now we're both linemen together. So it's pretty cool too.
Yeah, that is pretty interesting the way life turns out that way,
Mm-hmm.
Now, you talked about your dad and how he used to take you around to these construction sites. What do you remember? How was your relationship with him?
Oh, really good.
Really good.
He'd wake me up and I'd go sleep in the back seat of the truck with a pillow, and then he'd wake me up when we get to Denny's or McDonald's, when they open up at 6 a.m. Well, we'd be leaving the house at 4 o'clock, sometimes 4:30. Get me up, and I got a little pillow and a blanket in the back, and he'd wake me up and go get some breakfast and just work all day, and then I'll sleep on the way home. But I don't know, he was always a good teacher, taught me really well. So I have no complaints at all. Like even though they're divorced and all that, I had no issues.
That's good. That's good to see. What is something that your father taught you that you want to share with your children when the time comes?
Yeah, just be around for him, see him all the time. Actually, my dad showed up today at my house to see my daughter today. So he always wants to be around. He comes by at least once a week, comes by and just shows up, basically being a show up dad. And that's the main issue there. He's always there for me. I'd see him, almost every single day. I can call him at any time. He'll drop anything, whatever he needs to drop and help me out. If I have issues with the house or anything, he would just drop it instantly and just come help me. So that's what I like about him.
And that's what you want to implement to your children too?
Yeah, just be around, and if your kids need you, you drop everything. Especially with the newborn now, I understand you drop whatever you're doing. If she's crying, you go tend to her. She's the boss of the house right now, so be around for her.
It's amazing the way they have the tendency to take that place in our lives, huh? It's like, man,
you should be screaming bloody murder, and then you're all nervous and all this, and then she gives a little smile, and it makes it all worth it.
That's amazing, brother. Well, let's jump into this topic that we have, bro. I mean, obviously you had an awesome childhood. I mean, you had some adversities that you had to overcome with the divorce and stuff like that, but nonetheless, your father was a solid dad and he was a show up dad for you. And that's amazing. So with that being said, I want to talk about you becoming a dad. Okay. This is probably one of the biggest events of your life, I can imagine.
Always, for sure it is. Being there the day she was born, during the whole pregnancy, like you can't do much when she's pregnant. You can help the wife out with it when the baby's born. You gotta be there because she's incapacitated a little while, for a few hours after the birth. So you're doing all the diaper changes and all that for the first night, and it hits you hard when you weren't doing much, and all of a sudden you're doing everything.
Oh, absolutely. And then as dads, you know what I mean, we try to make the most time, especially tradesmen dads. We try to make the most of our time, because we come up in a trade where there's no wasted moves. So if we can transpire that to being a father, we're doing all these things. We're not wasting moves. We're putting diapers, we're doing all the work we can while we're there, right? Be where your feet are. A lot of times though, as fathers, is we think that we can multitask. And I don't know if you've heard it in other podcasts that we've had where there's no such thing as multitasking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So with that being said, when you're there, be there, right? When you're with your child, engage your child, put that phone down. You know what I mean?
Yep. That's a big factor, is that phone nowadays.
Oh, right.
Get sidetracked in it, and all of a sudden I look down and I've been on it for half an hour, and I think you think it's been about 4 or 5 minutes, but you got to get out of that habit.
Sure. Exactly. Now, in what ways did becoming a father change you, Clint, that you've seen?
My priorities were completely different, or just completely like 180 out compared to, hanging out and, drinking beer, this and that. And now it's just, you got to tend to her all the time. And, I used to drink probably more beer and like get more beer and stuff like that than I should have. But now I only have like, one or two. So you got to be able to take care of it all times. So I used to like drink a lot of beer, stuff like that, party and have fun. But we recently went to Vegas, and it was like the most mild Vegas trip we went on because my mother-in-law watched our baby Hayden for 5 hours. We got to go out and have fun for a little while, but then we paid the price and we came back home because we were drinking, and then she was freaking not very happy, and then we both were tired and want to go to bed. But
that's cool. That's awesome that you were able to change your priorities and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah,
it's
she's number one priority all the time now. So
absolutely, and it takes over those vices. Like for me, I still drank and I still chewed, and I would switch off. That's how I handled my vices, right? If I was not drinking, I was chewing. If I wasn't chewing, I wasn't drinking, and vice versa. You know what I'm saying? And I remember my wife telling me when my daughter was already like 2 or 3, she tells me, she's like, I'm not going to tell you not to drink, but are you going to be happy with your daughter being comfortable with that smell of alcohol on a man? If you're okay with that, then I'm never going to tell you anything again. And man, once my wife told me that, dude, I stopped drinking. I haven't started drinking for like 14 years. I haven't drank.
Yeah, that's good. Really good.
So moral of the story is you will make the changes for things that are important to you,
Oh yeah. Yeah. All the, golfing and all that's out the window now, maybe in a few months you can get away for a few hours, whatever. But, I used to golf and this and that. And I'm not even golfed in 4 months now, stuff like that, just the weekend hobby stuff, But yeah, I only have a beer or two now, just for fun. But she still drives the car home, and I'll sit in the back of the baby if I need to, no big deal. She takes care of me. So
that's good. That's good to see you guys partner like that,
Yeah, she does great for us. She's a really good mom for our baby. So
how do you make the most of your time when you're home, Clint?
Usually picking up if the baby had a bad day and was up a lot. I just pick up, start doing laundry, cook dinner, give the baby a bath right before bed. Was pick up all the slack where we're left off if the wife had a rough night because she watched the baby all night, so I get to go to work and be rested. If she's not doing good, I'll let her take a nap. I'll take the baby on a walk around the park. That would get her out of the house for a while, and just pick up the less slack where if she couldn't do the laundry, I'll finish the laundry. If she defrosting the meat for dinner, I'll cook the dinner. No big deal. I'll just take over where the slack was left off.
And I just want to commend you on that because that's being an intentional father. That's one of our core values here at the foundation is being that intentional, committed, responsible dad. And when you do that, you're showing that you're intentional, you're being committed, you're being responsible because you're engaged. You're aware of your surroundings. You're aware that your wife didn't get the sleep she needed last night and she's tired. You're aware if the diapers are getting low, you know what I mean? Versus a checked out dad or a distant dad, as we like to call it at the foundation, where you're completely oblivious to anything that's happening.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I stock I check, I make sure there's an extra bag of wipes, 20 extra diapers. I go check it every couple of days. I know I like to have plenty of all that stuff. I have about 5 boxes of diapers for the next, few months in the garage. I don't want to be out of them. So.
Now it's interesting to see you talk about that. And then I look at that and I see it from my point of view, just being a lineman instructor, just like you, and, just having apprentices of my own and stuff like that back in the day. I see that same type of mentality as an apprentice lineman, right? You're always stacked up. I mean, how many times do we tell our apprentices at the job or even at the apprenticeship that be that apprentice that has that little memo pad, writes things down, keeps things stocked up. And that's exactly what you did. That what you learned at the apprenticeship transpired into your fatherhood. So now you're stacked up. You're ready to go. You got diapers lined up,
Yeah, it's the
stuff.
That I heard the saying one time. I'd rather be looking at it than looking for it. So that saying stuck with me. So I'd rather always be, I already have, if I need one, I'll get 2. It's always a mentality, if you have, material for the truck, you're not going to grab 2 poles, but, or 2 transformers, but, I always try to get extra cut on the truck just in case one breaks or an extra lightning arrestor. So, if something happened, we're good to go. I don't want to be that guy that didn't have it. So that saying stuck with me for big time. It still sticks with me at every time we teach a climbing class, I tell them that saying, come Friday right before we ship them out to go to work. I'd rather be looking at it than looking for it.
And it's cool that you transpired that to being a father. I mean, that's awesome. I commend you to that, dude.
Thank you, brother.
That's amazing. You know what I mean? Now I know for me, through the pregnancy up until my wife actually gave birth, I kind of was distant with my child. I petted my wife's belly and, I talked to the baby every once in a while, but I was kind of distant. Did you ever feel like that during your pregnancy?
Oh yeah. She would make me known or make me feel that I was distant also. Are you going to come talk to her? We need to read to her. I was definitely in the same boat. They say you start reading to her in the womb that way, or to your child in the womb, so they can understand words better, this and that. But I was definitely not there. I was still like not a dad yet. It changes you as soon as you bring them home. And it's like, man, I should have been there, more often for that. Even for the baby being in the womb, for sure. I should have been there more. I know that for a fact.
For me, it was like, baby's going to come and I'll have all that time to do that. That was my mentality.
Yeah. Same thing here, basically.
And even like just being around my wife, like I didn't want to like hurt the baby. You know what I mean? Just like, I was very careful, like, oh, I don't want to sit too close to you, because, I don't want to accidentally elbow her or whatever. What I mean?
Yeah. No worry.
So yeah, that's cool that you experienced that too. And I think a lot of fathers out there experience that same distance too, you know what I mean, during that pregnancy too. So it's good to that you experience that as well. Did you have to give up any vices when you became a dad? I mean, you stated that you don't drink as much, but is there anything else that you decided to give up for your child or anything like that? Or
not like, I'm trying to think, or not give up, just slow down it can be put to the side, till 6 months, like golfing and stuff like that with the boys. I want to be there for the kid and help my wife out during the day. So, when you go golf, it takes 6 hours. You're not going to be able to leave the house for 6 hours just to go have fun while your wife's watching the baby and taking care of her. That's not fair either. So, like maybe in, 3 or 4 more months from now, my mother-in-law does great and watches the baby a lot all the time, and watched her in Vegas last weekend. But stuff like that, stuff that doesn't have to get done and it's just pleasure stuff that just gets put to the side no matter what. So baby comes first.
I know when my child was born, my firstborn, I was working out of town a lot. I wasn't around. Probably for the first 7 years of her life, I was on the road. And that really affected my relationship with my daughter, to where we have a good relationship now, just because I've been doing this whole foundation and just trying to be a better dad and being more aware of the things I've caused. But man, that was really a rough spot for me, is because my lack of involvement in her life. And when I did come home, I was still in like that work lineman mode. You know what I mean? You figure because you're living on the road, you're spending time away from your family. And when you come home, you're not even comfortable being home.
Yeah. Yeah. I never had that because, I wanted to wait until I was, financially secure and more mature as a man to have a child and make sure I find the right woman first. Because I don't want to have a divorce, because coming from a divorced family, my mom got remarried again when I was about 9 and divorced again when I was 15 in high school. So my stepdad was cheating on my mom and this and that. She found it through phone records, and I've been through 2 divorces now. That's like, I don't want to be that guy. So I want to make sure I find the right woman first. I don't want to have my child be divorced, even though I still had a really good life and good childhood. But it wasn't like ideal. Parents have been married 30 years. It's not that case. It's not the case. But I want to make sure I was, have a house, and I don't want to be living in an apartment if I'm, what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's bad, but I wanted to be able to have a backyard for the kid and be secure. And so that's why I waited till I'm 30 now. The baby was born when I was 30, but I just wanted my priorities straight before, I knew childhood was a big thing to have a child. So.
No, and it's interesting that you talked about divorce like that. I mean, I think it's 1 in 3 marriages or 1 in 2 marriages. I don't even know what it is now. I know it's really high, ends in divorce, especially with our trade. I mean, there's divorces running rampant. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, you hear stories all the time.
Mm-hmm. I think though, as husbands, because being a husband is just as important as being a father, because what we're doing is we're mimicking to our children how they're supposed to teach or treat the opposite sex, right?
Yeah.
We're their example.
Yeah. You
Now,
lead by example. So that's the
exactly.
way, that's the way I treat everything. And even teaching at the JTC, I lead by example. I
Mhm.
always demonstrate first, and then I ask them to do it. I don't ask someone to do something that I wouldn't do. So I show them the correct way to do it the first time, and then go ahead and try it, figure it out yourself. But yeah, especially as a kid, you're a product of your environment.
Mhm.
So if you have your dad's yelling and screaming, fighting with your parents, you just think that's normal, but it's actually not.
No.
So yeah, definitely. That's why I wanted to make sure I was in the right situation,
Mhm.
and I am. So waited a little longer than I wanted to probably, but we're good to go now. So I'm set.
That's solid. And just advice for those who are listening, when you get married, our goal is to enjoy your spouse. Okay. It's not to be dependent upon our mate to make us happy, or try to meet their needs, because we can never meet their needs 100%. And I think that's where we fail as fathers, as husbands, as mothers and wives. You know what I mean? We're constantly trying to placate our spouse and to make them happy. And it's not our job to make them happy. Just like with our children, we had a guest in the past, Nathan Padilla, and he talked about how our goal as fathers is not to make our children happy, but to create an environment where they can experience happiness. And I wholeheartedly believe that. You know what I mean?
Oh yes, yeah. Coming from my wife's parents, been married I think like 32 years and happily married, and it's like I have two different, like I came from two divorces, and then they've been together for 32 years and they love each other and have a good time. It's cool to see both. Like they definitely have, sometimes they have fights and this and that, but no big deal. They've been married 32 years, but it's just cool to see that. I want to be like that couple,
Mhm.
be around, pick their, make sure me and my spouse are doing good, and make sure like when we're dating, make sure everything, I just want to make sure that she was the one.
Mhm.
So
And just to quote an old lineman I know, when I first joined the trade, one of the first things he told me, he's like, "You're in construction, you're going to be traveling." He's like, "Love your wife." That's what he told me. He's like, "Love your wife, because if you don't, someone else will." And he's absolutely right. I mean, we got to continue to love our spouse, and we got to continue to live in that moment with them. You know what I mean? Don't cut them out of the picture the way I did. I had a
mhm.
lot of issues that I was dealing with in our marriage, being on the road and trying to support two homes, while being on the road. And all that weight, all that pressure that builds up on a father, on a husband, on a provider, I didn't know how to deal with it. So I started isolating myself. You know what I mean? In a sense, I think I did that to protect my family, because I didn't want to freak out on them and let them know that, hey, I don't got this. I'm not okay. You know what I mean? Because as men, we don't want to admit that to our wives. I don't know
Yeah.
why, pride or ego or whatever. But in the same token, I isolated my wife, and my wife, honestly, she, for the longest time, she thought I hated her,
Hmm.
and I got an amazing, amazing, amazing wife. You know what I mean? And it's awful that I did that to her. It's awful that I put her through that whole gestation period of years where she thought I actually hated her.
Yeah, it's gonna be rough. I know I was apprentice. I was on the road
Uh-huh.
and dating a different girl, but that was definitely rough too. But I could imagine having kids and being married and living on the road. I've been, thankful. I've been journeyed out in Southern California where the work's plentiful, and you know, like you're 6 or 7 yards within a 45-minute drive of my house. So
Mhm.
I've never had to have that issue as being as a father and being married. But I've only been a father for 3 months now. But that's why I took the job with the JTC. It's less hours. Most guys right now are working 80, 90 hours a week.
Mhm.
And I'll be that guy that's working less. I could be at home more and enjoy the weekends with my baby. So
Well, kudos to you. My hat's off to you, because that takes a big man to be able to step away from that type of money. You go to
yeah,
from making, what was it, 6, 7 thousand a week,
yeah,
you
oh yeah,
know,
oh yeah, on a slow week.
on a slow
Yeah,
week, right?
yeah.
Now, with that being said, I want to read you something, okay? I wholeheartedly believe that becoming a father shows you how selfish you really are. What I mean by this is, now you got this little human being, right, who needs care, and everything we do or don't do could have a direct effect on their well-being. how's making the decision to become a full-time instructor at the baddest apprenticeship in the world, which is Cal Nev, right? I wholeheartedly believe we are the top of the food chain as far as apprenticeships go. Now, how has that helped you be a better father and a husband, just besides having the time now?
I don't know, teaching, guys every single week, that is going to help me as a father to teach my daughter how to do stuff, like I'm already a patient guy already, but may have more patience, maybe help me become a better teacher, because she can't tell me if I'm being a bad teacher, but I can, I had my first Saturday class this week on Saturday, this past Saturday. So I told my guys, hey, if there's something, I'm a new instructor and teacher. If there's something that you think I can help improve on, let me know, because I'm still, green to the teaching and learning thing and the instruction part. But I think probably be a good, for instruction and teaching is going to help me out big time.
And probably just communicating, right?
Yeah. I've had many nicknames on Kroese, the Boomhauer, because I talk so fast. And I start mumbling quickly because especially on something I get excited about, I talk really fast. And this long, I told my mom I got this job teaching guys, and she's like, well, you better slow down and not talk so fast, because I'm not getting my point across, or I'm gonna keep repeating myself. So just the slowing down and being to communicate and get the point across the first time is definitely gonna help me as a father.
Yeah, because communication is like the number one thing. I mean, if a lot of the things we do in our trade, we can use as linemen, and that's kind of the premise of what I'm doing here with the Show Up Dad, is because everything we learn, from look up and live, to be where your feet are and stuff like that, all these little monikers that we use in the line trade, we can transpire them over to line work, even to 3-point communication. You know what I mean? When I'm talking to my teenage daughter and I'm telling her something and then I have her repeat it back to me, that lets me know, even if she's rolling her eyes, that's letting me know she's paying attention. She's listening to what I say. And I'm actually doing my job, even if she's bugged with me. You know what I mean?
It's important to get the communication across for sure, at home and on the crew. And it could save someone's life. It could, could save your daughter's life, or something like that too. So I can see it. Communication is definitely key on both the trade and at home.
Now that you're not on a crew, brother, obviously I know you love this trade just as much as I do. And it's hard to transition out of your tools into a teaching atmosphere, right? So now that you're not on a crew, what do you like best about it? And what do you miss about it?
The best part about it is not being exhausted when I get home from, rubber gloving. There was like 104 when I started like 6 weeks ago. I just imagine rubber gloving and sleeving for, 6-7 hours in a bucket. You're just exhausted when you go home, and pretty much tell the wife, don't talk to me. I'm sitting on this couch, or go take a cold shower and sit on the couch for the rest of the night and relax. But now, I come home energized and rested and ready to take the baby. She, sometimes it's a bad day. She just, as soon as I come home, I wash my hands and make sure my hands are clean before I go touch my baby. And she goes, here, it's a rough day. You have her that's perfect. I have her for a couple hours, feed her a bottle, take her on a walk around the park and stuff like that. And then what I miss about it is just the camaraderie on the crew, just having fun, talking crap to each other. I just think about it. There's so many funny little stories when you're telling stories on Saturdays in class about all these guys you work with. There's a lot of stories that you have, and you just, bring one out here and there, and it's just fun.
Yeah, for sure. It's the guys you miss, even me being in the military and stuff like that. It's not necessarily being in the military or serving your country or anything like that. It's the guys that are next to you, you know what I mean, that make that time pass. Cause you're spending time, when you're on a crew or you're in the military or whatever, you're spending time with those guys more than you are your own family. They become your family,
Yep.
So
Same
you
thing on a
definitely
crew,
miss
yeah.
that. Yeah, exactly.
Working 80, 90 hours a week. You're pretty much just going, just shower and go to bed and do it again the next day. Especially for the last 3 months of the year, on the Edison property, the contract is just getting crazy. It's an open checkbook. Yeah, you're never home. So my wife's really happy that I'm working the JTC now. I'm always home. 3-day weekends. I'm looking to get a motorhome here soon, so go do little weekend trips with the baby and teach her how to fish and camp. And I got a Jeep. We're gonna go off roading, teach her all kinds of cool stuff.
Man, that's awesome, dude. I'm so happy to hear that you're just making those memories, you know, because that's time we don't get back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I grew up fishing with my stepdad, the one that ended up cheating on my mom. But before then, it was all fine and dandy, you know. But he taught me how to stream fish and all kinds of stuff. He used to fly airplanes too out of Chino Airport. I had my glider license. I used to fly gliders and 29 Palms. You know, I sold it at 14 years old behind the tow plane. He would tow me up with the Cessna. I'd have a glider behind it. I'd fly by myself, and you become a man real quick when you're 14 years old and you have your life in your hands. You know,
Oh yeah.
there's no engine on it, so you don't make it back. You're not making it back. So you can boom up real fast, you know, and pay attention and get matured really quick.
Do you think that young men like that need, like, to me, that sounds like a rite of passage, right? A lot of times, you know, different cultures, you know, they have that rite of passage, like say for Jewish people, you know, they have the bar mitzvah. Another rite of passage would be like in New Mexico, they have this Indian tribe called the Isleta Indians, and they have this deal called the evergreen, where the boy actually travels into manhood and he goes in the mountains and has to survive, you know what I mean, in the wilderness, you know, for a few days and stuff like that. So do you think that was kind of like a rite of passage for you? Just
Yeah, definitely for sure. Yeah.
Do you think the generation now needs that rite of passage? Do you think it helps them, young men?
It's definitely going to help them, you know, if they plan on, you know, going to college and doing one of those jobs, it doesn't matter as much. But if, you know, if they're going to do the construction part, I would say needing a rite of passage and, you know, becoming a young man like that is definitely going to help them progress in their career as a hardworking, you know, construction worker of some type, whatever path they take. But I would definitely recommend something like that. Yes.
Now that we're on that topic, Clint, do you feel that the little climbing deal that we run our guys through at the beginning, their first week, the assessments that they do, that little mini hell week, as I call it, do you think that's kind of a rite of passage to break them into our trade as well?
Oh yeah, definitely. You know, you want the guys that want to be there. You know, it's not going to be fun for them, but you want the guys. You don't want the guy that just wants there for the money. You want the guy that, you know, the money is cool, but he wants to be there, be the brotherhood, be your brother's keeper, and work hard. And you know, there's a certain breed that just likes to drive by and build stuff with their hands. And you know, I love driving by poles. I've worked in Southern California, everywhere down here. And I was pointing out to my wife, we changed that pole out. I worked in this vault, I did this and that, built these towers over here, crossing down the 10 freeway, going towards Blythe, you know, stuff like that. Just, you definitely the rite of passage. Yeah, the hell week is just, you know, makes the guys want it, and they come smiling, but they're hurting, but they want to be there. So just put a smile on my face to make sure that we're progressing our trade in the right path, and we're going to have good quality hands coming out of there to teach. You know, if I have, you know, we're going to try to have another kid. If I have a boy next and he wants to be a lineman, on the guys I'm teaching, they might be teaching my, you know, if I have a son someday. So I want to make sure they're on the right path. So
that's good to hear you say that, because I've had the same conversation with other linemen, and I've thought about that myself. You know, these kids might be the ones who are training my kid. You know, and if we're not putting out a good quality product, you know, these kids might have the potential to injure and hurt our sons. Or, you know what I mean, in the field, or daughters, you know, if your daughter so chooses to be a line woman, you know what I mean? With that being said, brother, what are some of the biggest challenges you faced with your new baby now?
The missing the slack of sleep at first, for first and most, but my wife has done an incredible job. So I get to sleep mostly through the night all the time. So, and then, just, you know, when she's crying, just remain calm. You know, sometimes there's ear piercing screaming and just like, oh my God, it's overwhelming. And you just gotta be calm. And, you know, she either wants a bottle or she needs to get changed. You know, now in the first couple of weeks it was rough. And now, you know, there's only a couple of things that's gonna make her mad. So she's either tired, has diaper change, or she's hungry. It's pretty easy now. But in the beginning it's very stressful, which is screaming, and I really didn't know what to do yet, stuff like that.
And it's crazy because they don't know how to communicate, and their last action to get what they want or what they need is crying. So that's pretty interesting. You know what I mean?
Even incredible.
Even with older children, a lot of times when they're acting out, even with my sons, when they're acting out and they're throwing down on the side of Walmart or whatever, it's because they need something. They're not getting attention. They're not getting a point across. They don't know how to communicate. So then I got to pull over my son and be like, okay, what's going on? What do you need at this moment? Versus giving them back in the day, I would have given them a backhand and be like, chill out. What the heck's wrong with you? You know what I mean? Like the way I grew up, my dad would have pulled me out to the over there in the car and gave me a good walloping. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But now things have changed, and now I've gotten knowledge and wisdom, and I'm like, okay, now my kid needs something. Just like your baby, when she's crying, she needs a diaper change, or she needs a bottle, or she's not feeling good, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with your kids when they start progressing and getting older. You know what I mean? So keep that in mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'll definitely be there. It's coming.
Right. Now, I know you've been a great support for your wife. I know you've been intentional. I know you've been committed with her. I know you pay attention to details. You know when she's sick, when she's tired and stuff like that. Okay. Did your wife struggle with any pregnancy disorders, like postpartum depression or anything like that?
Not too much, no, but more about like what the pregnancy did to her body after the baby, So stretch marks, this and that. She's just not happy with her body as what the baby did to her, side of thing. But other than that, not that I know of. She has never communicated to me about that. But she's good to go as far as I know.
And it's crazy because like our wives, I know my wife, she was always worried about stretch marks and stuff like that too. And I had to tell her one day, I'm like, look, man, you carried my children. Those are battle scars of you carrying my children. Those are beautiful to me. I don't give a crap what anybody says.
Yeah, she's always worried about what I'm going to think. Like, you just gave birth to our child. It was the most amazing thing ever to be there, watch the child being born and all that. And it's incredible what, a male and female can do. And 9-10 months later, this baby comes out. It's pretty incredible, actually, the whole process.
Now, I wanted to ask you, being a new daddy, brother, did you experience any daddy blues? Baby coming?
Yeah, I was sort of missed like being able to do whatever I wanted when I wanted, and that's not the case anymore. It's, the baby's me all the time. So, all your priorities and stuff are out the window. But I want to change it for the world now. I love it. So, but, getting accustomed to this, she takes precedence all the time over everything. That's definitely different.
I went through a bout of those daddy blues too myself. And I mean, just hindsight 2020, looking back, when I was thinking about this question to ask you, man, if I'm real with myself, I could say, yeah, I kind of got a little bit depressed. You know what I mean? I don't know what it was. Maybe it was like for you, just the change, because it's a drastic change when you have a child.
Yeah, I think about the first night we brought her home. We only stayed in the hospital one night. They brought her home the second night. And she was just screaming at 3:00 in the morning. I'm just sitting there like, what did I get myself into? And I'm like, oh my God, it's gonna be like this forever. And then, 2 months later, everything's just sleep. 3 months later, she's sleeping through the night and is an angel most of the time, but it's I was not as ready as I thought I was. Let's put it that way. You can think you're ready. You got this baby room's ready. The house is all done. You got all the car seats loaded up, but you're not ready. That all the materialistic items were ready. I was not ready for sure.
And all the stuff that our wives do too, when they're going to get ready to drop the baby. It's crazy how they go through that nesting process. That's what my wife called it. She's like, I'm nesting, and she would start getting everything ready. And I'm like, what are you doing? What do you want me to put together? What do I got to do?
Dude, I had the bags packed in the baby bags packed for like 6 weeks in the back of the Jeep. You always noticed we had everything was packed, dude, from pillows to extra blankets to, diaper bags, everything ready to go. Car seat was in there like 2 months early, just sat there in the back of the Jeep. But it's definitely the nesting thing was for sure.
I wanted to ask you, Clint, how many children do you want to have, brother?
2.
2?
Yeah, I have an older sister, Everyone in my family's, one boy, one girl, actually. So it just seems normal to me. So my wife has an older brother, which I graduated with him. So it just, everywhere I looked is one boy, one girl. I have a niece and a nephew for my sister. It's just the way it is. It just seems like, hopefully a girl first and boys in second, if possible, but nature has its own course. But that would be the ideal plan, 2 kids. And if we have 2 girls, we're still sticking with just 2 girls,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, that's good. That's good to see. You know what I mean? That because a lot of times people now they have one child and that's it.
Yes, I noticed if I've ever had hung around a kid that was a single kid, they were always like entitled and spoiled and never had to share. And that's not gonna make a good adult, when they always had their way and they don't know any better and we've never gotten yelled at or put time out together. I used to argue with my sister a couple times, and getting yelled at and this and that. But one kid was definitely would not work for us. I don't want him to be the spoiled child and be entitled to everything, because I know I was never entitled to much either. So, I always had to work for it.
That's interesting that you say that, because I've noticed the same thing. You could always tell a single child, it's like you said, entitlement. They think the world owes them something, or
it's always me, this and that, and not sharing or we or anything like that,
Mm-hmm. And I even noticed that with my daughter, because we had my daughter first, and she's 7 years older than her middle brother, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's a pretty good age gap difference. In between there, we lost 2 babies. Both times I was on the road. And
that's rough.
Oh yeah, it's rough, especially when you're pretty far along. And I contribute that now that I know, to the stress of my wife being home and having the other daughter and then a farm to take care of. And I'm over there on the road providing and stuff like that. So all that stress compounded on her to where her hormones are off, and it basically just kind of got rid of the baby, her own body. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
stress for sure is a leading factor to that kind of thing. My wife's an RN, so I know a lot about baby stuff now. So I've read all kinds of dad books and baby books, and I was telling her stuff. She goes, "How do you know that?" I said, I read that in my book, like all the month stages and how much ounces they're going to feed and all the code names and all this stuff, all the real names and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So pretty cool.
That's awesome, brother. Now, so you read all these daddy books and stuff like that. So the importance of bonding with your child from birth, you know what I mean? And how you can bond through touch, talking, playing, and just being involved in daily care. What did you do to bond with your baby? What do you do? What do you like to do?
I just put her on my freaking belly and we just watch TV together or play with her and put her on my knees, and she looks at me, and then that's all you need to do. She looks at me and gives me a smile. That's all I really need. It cheers me up when I come home from work, and we go on walks together, get some exercise, go around the park. She likes to look around all the trees. She loves being outside. Mm-hmm. So it's just, the more I can take her outside, the better.
Absolutely. I agree. Just being that intentional father. Mm-hmm. Now that we're talking about that, Clint, I wanted to ask you your own opinion on what do you think the state of fatherhood is today in the world? You know what I mean?
I think I'm more like traditional style, mm-hmm. But a lot of these new guys, new dads, and they're not around for their dad. They're not around for their kids, and it's just not cool, Mm-hmm. But the baby's not the priority, and their phone is, their video games are. I've seen a lot of guys that, oh, my husband plays video games. Dude, you're 30 years old, dude. You don't need to be playing video games. You need to be taking care of your kid. Mm-hmm. You see that a lot, that the video games and the phone takes more precedence than the kid, which is not right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I see that a lot.
And how do you think that's affecting, just because we're tradesmen, we're linemen, we're instructors and stuff like that. How do you think it's affecting the kids that we're seeing now?
Well, they're, you're product of your environment. If you were brought up that way, if you have kids, it's gonna be the same way. It's gonna be a never ending process of mm-hmm. making, of having not quality dads. Mm-hmm. So I can see that happening, a couple of generations from now, because it's changed even, 20 generations, 25 years. So but 75 years ago, it was a different lifestyle mm-hmm. than it was now. So I can only see it's going to get probably worse, in a way from here on out with all the technology and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. For being around, being a show up dad.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with you. I read this article called "The Fall of the Nuclear Family," and it talked about how every single civilization that was great in history has fallen through the same 7 ideologies, and that the United States is falling into those same things. And one of them is the fall of the nuclear family, the traditional family, as we'd like to call it, where there's no more father involved. There's mothers are taking on roles that they should never have taken apart. You know what I mean? As far as being raising children by themselves and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And we can go on and on and on, but I mean, it's pretty interesting that that's the way things are going right now, you know?
Yeah, because I came up, like, it'd always just be the stay-at-home mom. That's not the case anymore, with especially in California with house prices and everything, all the inflation. The mom's gonna have to work, so they're gonna be in daycare, and now you have the daycare is raising them instead of the family. So I'd rather have, I got lucky. My mother-in-law's gonna be able to watch the baby here when my wife goes back to work, but I'd rather have my wife be at home and not work. If that was the case, but the line trade allows you to have a stay-at-home mom. We make good enough money to have her at home and raise. I'd rather have my wife or my mother-in-law raise my child than not a stranger. So.
Exactly. And especially even with devices. I mean, I know a lot of fathers, when we go to the store or even a restaurant, you see a whole family and everybody has a phone in front of them, dude, from the father all the way down,
Yeah, that chaps me up big time. I want to see that stuff. You should be there, and what happened to the paper footballs, playing football and stuff like that, other napkins, all that stuff, shooting the straws at each other, the paper wrapping, stuff like that, You just park it on your phones, and now you order on your phone, and they're just making, I think in my opinion, it's bad, there's no personal talking. You don't talk to the waitress or waiter anymore. You just order it and then just drop it off. The communication, to strangers is disappearing big time. You can go, I know I'm guilty of it. We go to Target and we go order this stuff and they just show up and they put it in the car, stuff like that. It's good to have your children, talk to strangers because they're going to be uncomfortable with them, and they need to be comfortable with talking to strangers and people they don't know. So it'll help them out later on in their life. Definitely.
I agree with you 100%. I also believe change is uncomfortable. And when you're, us as parents, when we go through changes in life and the way we handle those changes, we're actually showing our children how to handle change for their life. If we're freaking out because this is happening or that's happening, we're actually showing them how to handle stress.
Yeah. Yeah, they can read that for sure. Even a newborn baby, if you're stressed, she can feel it. Yes. And for mine, if you're calm, she's calm. If you're stressed, then she's just not happy. So I can see that happening. Even though I'm only, I've only been a dad for 3.5 months, but I used to definitely see that happening. If your kids see you're stressed, that's normal. Which is, or if you can't handle stress, very well, try to not let them see it.
That's awesome that you said that, because I want to share with you a little bit. My last son, Kemper, my little baby, I was on I was working at the utility, and I left the utility, and my wife was extremely stressed because I was going to go back on the road. Okay. And she had our baby in September. I went on the road to an ice storm in December, and I was gone, So she had the 2 kids plus my baby, newborn baby, and she's out there breaking ice and breaking water while I'm out on this ice storm in Oklahoma and Texas. Right. And the baby was extremely stressed. He got this, I don't even know what it was called, but he basically became allergic to my wife's milk, and we didn't know it. So every time he drank the milk, it was like it was burning acid. So his skin was just like, it looked like he was burnt, like someone had thrown hot water on him. And the nurse said that that was one of the worst cases they've seen in New Mexico. And there's only like 5 babies that actually had his condition at the time in the whole state. And I contribute that to stress, just the stress that I had put my wife under during her pregnancy, and even up until where we had the baby. And then I left again on the road. You know what I mean? So you're right on that. You know what I mean? There's something to that stress,
Even when I go to work for 10 hours, I live 5 miles away from the JTC, but when it's a work night, it's more stressful trying to get her down in time, this and that. So I get a decent amount of sleep, and compared to having a weekend, and it's more relaxed and more fun. It's not scheduled, it's all scheduled, especially with the baby, 8 o'clock bath time, feed her one more time, change her, and then put her down by 8:30. But I could definitely, if my wife was by herself, she would be completely stressed out if I was not around. I can guarantee you that. And baby would probably know that for sure and feel that.
Last but not least, Clint, I wanted to ask you, what kind of advice could you give a new daddy coming up in this trade and stuff like that?
You think you're gonna be ready, but you're probably not gonna be. But just try your best, staying calm, especially your wife's freaking out. If you're good and you can help keep her calm, then the situation's gonna be a lot better off. So I'm a pretty calm guy too, but I was getting stressed for a minute there. Like this baby just came out, and like the next day, within 20 hours, we are taking her home. I'm like, you're gonna let us take her home? But at least I knew my wife's RN, so I'm like, okay, we'll be okay. But if I was definitely nervous. But just try to make sure you're stable, stick around. Try not to let the baby see your stress, and make sure you find a good partner so you don't have to get divorced. That's the main thing too. Make sure you find the right woman before you try to have kids or stuff like that. That's what I recommend.
Well, once again, thank you, Clint, for coming on our show. It's a pleasure to have you on here, dude. When I asked you, I was just like, man, I got to get this guy on here. He's got so much knowledge, and I just thank you, dude, for coming on here. I truly do.
Appreciate it, brother. I'm glad to be on here. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I also want to give a special shout out to White Delta Sunglasses and Eyewear Store. Thank you to Albert Arias. Love the hat, big dog. You guys are making some quality stuff. Keep up the good work. And once again, this is Dave from the Show Up Dad reminding you that you are more than just a paycheck. Thank you very much for tuning in.